We never support or oppose candidates, but we do take positions on issues that we've studied both at a local, state, and national level. Our goal for tonight's program is to help you become better acquainted with the candidates seeking to represent the Saugatuck City Council. The candidates will have an opportunity to express their viewpoints, answer your questions, and share some of the reasons why they are running for this office. The candidates have been given the rules, but I read them for the audience as well. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to present an opening statement. Your questions will be answered in 1.5 minutes. I will remember this time to have closing statements of 2 minutes. In the front is Jane Johnson. She has the stop sign, and she will indicate when it is time to stop. The order of who speaks first or second will be determined alphabetically, and that's a rotating process. Tonight we're having the open mic so that you can come to the mic. Please state your name and pose your question. If you'd like to share your question particularly for one person, that's all right, but each candidate then will also have the opportunity to answer the question. If you are uncomfortable with asking your questions, you can raise your hand and a league member will come and give you a card to write your question. However, please sign your name so that we have that name as well. No cameras or taping equipment is permitted. And as a courtesy to everyone, would you please check that your cell phone is turned off? Steve is our videographer, and he's going to share how to use the mic.
Microphone etiquette. You can gladly come up here when you're ready to talk. Push the white button, then we'll hear you. When you're done talking, turn it off, or you pick up echo. And our video is going to be on the website, so we don't want to echo. Okay? Thank you. And if they don't turn it on or off,
We have 5 candidates this evening vying for 4 positions, and the candidates alphabetically are Mark Becken, Barry Johnson, Joe Leonati, Ken Trester, and Jane Verplank. Each will have 2 minutes to provide opening statements. So we begin with Mark.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thanks to the League for sponsoring this forum. I'm a Saugatuck native, born and raised here. Graduated from Saugatuck High School. Graduated from Western Michigan University. I currently live on Campbell Road, and I'm the owner of Saugatuck Harbor Insurance Agency in Douglas. I've been on City Council for over 30 years. I've served in just about every capacity that a City Council person can serve in, including a term as mayor. I also represented the cities of Allegan County in formation of the 911 Central Dispatch Authority and served as the first non-government employee director of the 911 Central Dispatch Authority. I currently am the chairman of the Kalamazoo Lake Sewer and Water Authority, and I want to continue to serve our community. I don't think I love Saugatuck any more than anybody else, but I think I love it in a little different way, and I think that's due from being a lifelong resident. I believe my strengths are in leadership, making tough decisions. I have a thorough knowledge of sewer and water and infrastructure. I've been involved in every hire of city manager since we became a city, also serving on the city charter commission. So I think my strengths are in continued management, development, maintenance of our municipal infrastructure. I'm a big supporter in the development and maintenance of our parks. And so I'm hoping that I earn your continued support now and in the future. Thank you.
Barry Johnson.
I'm Barry Johnson. I've been in Saugatuck 36 years with my lovely wife Kathy, and we raised our family here. Our kids started in preschool, graduated from the high school, so we've been here a long time, and have served the community. Both Kathy and I have. Kathy was on the hospital board back when we had a hospital going back into the 80s. And so we've been serving the community a long time. I got involved in Boy Scouts in the 80s. I still serve as the Boy Scout Committee Chairman at Troop 29 for about 28 years. I've served on the Kalamazoo Lake Sewer and Water Authority. I've served on Community Rec. I was in the Planning Commission when we kept McDonald's from moving into town. I've been on the Police Committee. I've been a mayor. And probably one of my traits on the council, I'm kind of a dissenter sometimes. Probably voted no more than anybody, but not very often because our council is on the same page generally, and that's really important for getting things done. And it's really enjoyable for me to serve on a council with so many experienced people. If you add up the years, it's got to be one of the top experienced councils in the state of Michigan. So I'd like to continue to serve. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and we'll talk about it the rest of the night.
Thank you. Joe Leonardi.
I'm Joe Leonardi. Last Labor Day was the 50th anniversary of the first time I came to the town. I've been a property owner here for 44 years, and I've been a permanent resident for, I believe, 13 or 14. I mention this because it gives me somewhat of a historical perspective of where the town was all those years ago, where it is now, and then hopefully some ideas of where it's going to go in the future. I'm basically running on three tenets: transparency, accountability, common sense. I believe that the job of the council is to speak for the people of the town, to present them with facts and have them make decisions, not to be elected and then suddenly I'm going to do what I want without any concern for them. The town itself, all these, there are many, many important things here, but what are we? Saugatuck is a small community with less than 1,000 people. The city council function is to make it run smoothly. Keeps the streets plowed, keeps the sidewalks plowed, keeps lighting on, keep water running. I may not have all the credentials that some of these other people have, but on the other hand, I think that common sense and a modicum of intelligence goes the wrong way. If I'm elected, I will speak for the people of the community. Thank you.
Ken Trester.
So I was the first one to forget the microphone protocol, I'm sorry. And I need to start off by saying that this wonderful warm weather has activated some allergies, so if I go into a sneezing fit, please forgive me. I will turn off the mic for that. I am Ken Trester. I'm the newest city council member of all the council. I was elected to my first term last year, and I was honored to be elected mayor pro tem. I was elected to the council 2 years ago and elected mayor pro tem by the council last year. I've been a full-time resident of Saugatuck for about 8 years, but I had been a visitor, regular visitor to the community for many years before that. So I look at this from the standpoint of both coming here as a tourist, a visitor, and a full-time resident. And I think those are two roles that are critically important that we address as part of our governance. Also, part of my qualifications, I've been working with the Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority for some years now, and I'm currently chairman of the authority and was the head of the Long Range Planning Committee that just completed a plan that we presented to the public last month. I've been on the Planning Commission, the Historic District Commission, and served in both those roles, so I'm pretty well versed on the various aspects of city government. I've also been very active in charitable work. I'm the past Commodore of the Cow Hill Yacht Club and was the chairman of both the Venetian Festival and the Chili Cook-Off this year. And we were fortunate enough to raise over $70,000 in that role. So I'm very much a part of the community in a number of ways. I'll stop there and pick up later.
And finally, Jane Verplank.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. My name is Jane Verplank, and I have lived in the city of Saugatuck for 38 years. I raised my 2 children here. They went through the school system from kindergarten to graduation. I have been on the city council for 10 years and served as mayor for 2 years. I have been involved with many projects and committees. My first endeavor was on a committee to institute a citywide residential single hauler garbage program. On that committee, we cut citizens' garbage bills in half and included curbside recycling. This program has been very, very successful in the community. 3.5 years ago, I was appointed to the Saugatuck Township Fire District Board and was quickly appointed its chair. The board's first project was finding a new fire chief. Greg Janik was hired in 2013 and we never looked back. We worked with the chief to reorganize the department, sell excess equipment, buy needed equipment, and change the personnel structure. We instituted a cost recovery program, put in place a grant writing program, and implemented a capital improvement plan. I represent the area on Mark's 911 board that he started. I'm on it. We recently implemented a $10 million radio update. My most recent project, through my work on the fire board and the 911 board and the police commission, is to recognize the need to form a committee to study area-wide public safety delivery. The goal of this group would be to, first of all, understand how area public safety departments interact with each other and to improve public safety delivery to the community, and also to make recommendations on how area public safety can be more economically delivered. Besides that, I own a 7-room bed and breakfast and have operated a business in this community for 38 years, and I'm on the CBB board. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it is your turn to ask questions of the candidates. Please come to the mic, state your name. I await your questions. The button, okay.
I'm Kathy Brockington, and I'm a resident of the city of Saugatuck, and I was born and raised here, and I went to school here, and my children didn't go to school here because we couldn't get a job here. But that's not my question. My question is, as a property owner, and I work on the election board for the city of Saugatuck, we only have 750 registered voters. And as a property owner, I am very concerned about the encroachment of commercial businesses into the residential districts. This means, for me, short-term rental housing. And I am very disturbed to have seen, even at the end of the summer, that very active real estate agencies are putting full-page ads in the commercial record to offer to help people who can't afford to buy their houses to rent their houses for them so they can pay for their mortgages because they want to have a second home in Saugatuck or whatever that is. But anyway, I'd like to know, what is the city council going to do? And I realize this is a zoning question, but what is the city council going to do eventually to protect the residential areas of our city and stop some of this short-term rental stuff? Because it's taking away school population, it's taking away people who live in the community, who vote, people who serve on the committees of, I mean, you guys don't have that much problem over on Campbell Road or other places, and some of them are in business districts. I don't have a problem with those. I live in a residential neighborhood, and the house on the end of my street was just sold, and now it's a short-term rental all summer, and then it's rented in the winter. And I'm across the street from me, there are 2 homes that have 5 bedrooms each, and several bathrooms, and they have right now 2 couples living in them. Well, they're just ripe for being bed and breakfasts. It's a residential neighborhood, and those are businesses. So what are we going to do about it? I'd like to hear from everybody.
And we start with Mark.
Yeah, I concur that it's a problem, and it's probably something that the city we let it get away from us, and I'll take my share of responsibility for that. It's probably one reason why I've been serving for 30-some years is because We don't have that many new people moving into the community. Those people have developed roots, those people who want to come in and serve on boards. We have had a lot of them, I'm not saying that, but that's one of the issues that you mentioned. I think it's time to talk about this issue in terms of a moratorium on these issuing permits. That has to come from the city. And I think we need to look at zone certain residential areas where maybe we just should not have any more of these. And we touched on that in the last year at City Council when we rewrote the licensing ordinance. I think we put some more teeth in that ordinance. But I think we do need to go a step further and look at either controlling them by zone, by residential zones, or moratorium, or just saying enough's enough. But we do have that problem on Campbell Road too, Kathy.
Barry?
Yeah, we've been hearing more and more about this in the last couple of years. We had one citizen lives down on Butler Street come up and said he's got no neighbors. I mean, everything around him is a rental. The first test of that, really, to my recollection, was a bed and breakfast that went in on Pleasant Street. And I know I voted against it, but I think in the end, I can't remember if it was decided in the courts or what happened, but that bed and breakfast was allowed on Pleasant Street in a residential neighborhood. And I think that's what kind of got things started. Now, saying that, the market drives the cost. And one of the phenomena is, and I think it was mentioned, that the price of the housing is so high, people buy them and then they have to rent them out to pay for it until they can retire and move into it themselves. And the market drives the cost in this town. So that increasingly makes it tough for young families to move in. Kathy and I had a short-term rental for a number of years. We just kind of burned out on changing beds every Sunday, but we turned it into a long-term rental and we put a family in there. And the family's got 3 people in the schools, and we were lucky enough to do that. But we do have 160 registered short-term rentals in town, and I'm certainly hearing it from our constituents that we've got to find some way to get that under control, and I'm all for it.
Thank you. Joe?
Well, there's no question that you have to put more teeth, as like Mark said, in the zoning of where you're allowing B&Bs or rentals and where you're not. The problem that you're going to be faced with, you're now trying to do things after the fact, where precedents have been set. So I think before anything is done, you've got to make the city attorneys part of the process to see what you can legally do and what you can't legally do. So I don't think it's just as easy as saying we're going to stop this type of rental, this type of B&B, because now you're going to be fighting with the people who've already bought property with that in mind. I mean, I'm personally on your side. We don't need any more B&Bs here. But I said it's going to be a little trickier, and I think before you do anything, you have to get the city attorneys involved to know what you can do legally and what you can't do legally.
Thank you. Ken?
I do agree. It's a complicated problem and a serious one. The gentleman that Mark referred to on Butler Street is a good friend of mine, and some of the stories that he tells me about what goes on around him are pretty devastating. I live in the East Shore Harbor condos, and we intentionally prohibited short-term rentals of the condos for just that reason. So I'm firmly in favor of moving forward with looking at some kind of control. While the legal problems that Joe addressed are real, I think there are solutions. Other communities, Key West, for example, sets quotas for short-term rentals and long-term rentals. So if you don't fit that quota, when an opening comes up, you can only rent for 30 days or more. And that's a solution. Another solution is to raise our requirements more than we did already. And I would be in favor of very seriously looking at that as well.
Jane?
First of all, we have to differentiate between a B&B and a seasonal rental. A B&B, I run a B&B. A B&B is supervised. There are not noise issues. If there are noise issues, they are put an end to immediately. Seasonal rentals are another animal altogether. They're unsupervised. The fire department has come into the scene, and we've put restrictions on how many people can be in a room, how many people can be in a B&B, or in a seasonal rental, I'm sorry. So we're trying to catch up with this. The biggest issues with seasonal rentals seem to be the fact that there are noise issues. People are here on vacation, they throw huge parties, there's parking issues. So yes, hopefully we can do something about this shortly. I think that it's everybody's right to make a living, and we need to restrict that right somewhat. But I don't know the answer.
Thank you. Next question.
Hello, I'm Michael Gustitis, resident of Saugatuck and owner of Wine Cellars of Saugatuck, so I have a business and resident. I'm also vice president of the Area Business Association, the Saugatuck Douglas Area Business Association, so I serve on that as well. My first question goes towards, as a business person in the community, you know, obviously I speak to a lot of the other business owners in town, and there's just a general feeling from the business owners that the city council is not quote-unquote business friendly, that they don't really do anything to help business in town. And whether or not this is real or not, it's just perceived by most business owners. So I just want to get everyone's take on how they feel the business community, you know, and maybe how city council could help out the business community, if anything, and maybe it's something that city council cannot do. But again, it's just a perceived thing that everybody, at least the business owners, talk about constantly. And then in the second part, as the business association vice president, we are trying to reinstitute something that was done years ago called Art Around Town. And I know that there's been some opposition on the current city council, so I just want to get everybody up there if they're kind of in favor or opposed to the Art Around Town that we are trying to reinstitute for next season. Okay, thank you.
So there are two parts to that question. One is, do you perceive that the council is business friendly? And two, what's your take on the Art Around Town? Thank you. We begin with Barry.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great business district, and you know, over the years I've been on the planning commission and the council. We've looked at different funding mechanisms to improve or enhance or whatever in our central business district. We looked at principal shopping district designations. We looked into downtown development authority, and these were all going to be funded on the backs of, you know, the taxpayers. And people didn't really want to have assessments put on them on the buildings downtown, and it just didn't really seem to go anywhere when we looked at all those options. The city expends what it can to enhance business, and there's very few things that we can actually spend the taxpayers' money on. We can do the 4th of July fireworks, or we can contribute to that. We can do Christmas decorations, but direct subsidies to businesses just isn't in the cards legally. So we certainly listen to the businesses. Quite often they're, you know, a lot of the council members have attended the business association meetings. So, you know, that's kind of out there, but I don't feel that I'm not business friendly. As far as Art Around Town, in my last few seconds, I certainly don't oppose it. I think it enhances the town. What I did oppose was inheriting a statue that we now have to maintain in perpetuity.
Joe?
Well, Barry's right, as the council is limited to what they can do in terms of subsidies or whatever on businesses. But I would like to see a closer relationship between the city council, the SADABRA, and the, was it SVB, the Saugatuck Visitors Bureau. I think anything that's going to be done to increase the benefits of the community itself and make it more positive has to be a joint effort. Each kind of relies on the other, and sometimes I've felt that you have people working in opposite ways. So I would think that you would want to have that closer relationship. As far as art around town, I personally like it, but as I said before, I don't think it matters what I like, it matters what the community likes. And if it was here one day, it was gone the next. And I've asked, well, who's responsible for that? I think I've got 3 different names and never did know who was responsible. That is something, as far as getting rid of it, if it was gotten rid of, should have been a decision made by the members of the community, not solely by the city council.
Ken?
Yeah, I agree that we perhaps don't have as much ongoing connection with the business community, between the business community and the council, as we could have and should have. I think it's been good that Greg's been attending our council meetings fairly regularly, and that exchange is always good. I think all of us, myself included, could spend more time traveling around the business community, talking to business owners and finding out your concerns. So I think a big part of this is communication. I personally feel that the success of our community depends very much on the success of businesses in this community. I mean, you guys make this a vibrant place that brings in lots of outsiders and makes it an exciting place to be. With regard to the art question, I think that I very much favor reinstituting that program, and I think that we've already created some agreements that will kind of make us comfortable with the way the program is run. So I think that's already underway, and I would favor certainly continuing that.
Jane?
I have lived in the downtown area of Saugatuck. I live right on Butler Street, right across from the post office. I think I have a real good feeling of what businesses are in Saugatuck. I have successfully run 2 businesses in the city of Saugatuck over the last 38 years. I believe that the city council does as much as they can possibly do for the cities. We keep up the parks, we keep up the cities, we keep the city clean, we empty the garbage, we do everything in our power to make the downtown vibrant for people to do business in. As far as art around town, I'm all for art around town. I'd like to see it done in a very tasteful manner. The last time we had art around town, it got so, some of the parks were so full of art that you couldn't see the art. So I'd like to see it done in a very tasteful manner and in a very organized manner.
And finally, Mark.
I think the councils have always, that I've served on and the people I've served with have always realized that there's, the business community is extremely important to the vibrancy of our resort community, and that's what we are, we're a resort community. But some facts is that our tax base in our commercial district represents about a little over 20% of our revenue comes from our commercial. That means around 80% comes from our residential. So it's always important to keep a balance between the residential and the commercial needs in our community. Conversely, we spend about 60 to 70% of every tax dollar in our downtown area and in our parks. I think oftentimes I always have stated that what the city contributes to the business community and the residential on an equal basis is our parks. We put literally hundreds of thousands of dollars into our parks, and I think they're unparalleled for a community our size, maybe in the entire country. And I take a lot of pride in that, and I think our council and our community does too. I think our community does support that. Regarding art around town, I'm all for it as long as I don't have to be the art critic. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Next question.
Good evening. My name is Larry Basil, and although I'm not a full-time Saugatuck resident, I own a business here in town. I have for the past 15 years. The business aspect of our community is important to me as an invested taxpayer. I wanted to ask the sitting council members, and I'm sure Mr. Leonardi would chime in. I was concerned when I saw the Muse building go up. And I wanted to try to get a better understanding of how that occurred and how many more like it might we expect to see in the future, given now that it's been a precedent for height, appearance, and construction type.
And we begin with Joe.
That's been something that's been on my mind for some time. You have a building where the doors opened the wrong way. You had poor windows where every time it would rain, you'd see puddles of water in the little enclaves in there. I believe that the sprinkler system was something that was put in as an afterthought. And it was my understanding that the brick was to resemble what's now the Grow or Toulouse. I don't understand. This would have had to get by the zoning committee, the historical society, and the council. It is difficult for me to understand how that happened, and no one spoke up. And Mr. Basil is correct. You set a precedent now. You're not going to be able to stop anybody else from putting up that kind of a monstrosity.
Ken.
Well, I think you said it well. The construct of it met the Historic District Commission's strict guidelines, if you will, at the time. I wasn't a member at the time that went through. But the biggest misunderstanding, I think, from my perspective, was what you mentioned about the cement work, the brickwork. It was supposed to look classy, like the buildings around it. And turns out what we have is just a cement block that's leaching calcium down the side of the building. I think it's a horrible looking building, and I would stand up and do everything I could to keep that from happening again.
Jane?
Oh, I agree with Ken and Joe. The building met standards, and as it was built, I know the sprinkler system as being part of the fire department, I know we went back several times to discuss sprinkler system with the developer. We went back several times to discuss the safety and security of the building. It's a bad building that we ended up with, but we tried to control it. But you know how something looks on paper and then how somebody builds something are two far different things.
Mark.
I can concur with most of the comments. I do think that it did. I don't think there were any variances given to that building. The body that we as legislators thought would possibly protect us from that type of construction, and the end result, our historic district, maybe failed us a bit as a community on that one. They're human. I guess, that sometimes those historical components are in the eye of the beholder. So it's there. We can't change history. Hopefully we learn from it, both from a council level, a zoning level, and a historic district committee level. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I don't know what we could have done through the course of the project, as it was built according to his what was approved at the historic and the planning commission levels. We had to drag him up into, I know that there were some issues catching up over time, which isn't unusual for developers. But like I said, hopefully we'll learn from it in the future.
Barry?
Well, let me make this unanimous. That is the worst building in town, and we got the wool pulled over our eyes as far as what was represented, what the exterior was going to look like, and what actually happened. And I agree with Mark, we just have to learn from this. And he kept coming back for more. He didn't put the garage door where it was supposed to go. He put it on the parking lot side. Then he came back to us and asked for an easement because the door was already there. It's been a terrible project from beginning to end, and it ain't over yet. So, yes, we have learned from this one.
Another question? If none from the audience, then thank you.
So Michael Gustaius again, resident and business owner. Just going back to accountability, I mean, I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but, again, as a resident now and business owner, not just city council, but there seems like there's other things that go on around here that no one seems to take accountability for, such as the building. And I know now it's like, well, that happened and we're going to try to learn from it, but I guess, as a resident, I would like the city council to be more accountable for things that do happen around town, and just get your take on that, please.
So your question is?
I guess the question is, can you just address accountability as a city council member towards the residents of the town?
Thank you. We begin with Ken.
Well, I think the council, all members of the council need to be accountable to our constituents. I think that very much. And however, going back to that particular issue, that building, I was appalled to learn as I got on the council is that the council really has no ability to override the Historic District Commission's decisions. Now, this is not a cop-out. To me, this is something that needs to be fixed. And I mean, there needs to be checks and balances at all levels of government, and there isn't one at that level. So that would be my hope, is that we could create something like that in the future.
Jane?
Accountability to the citizens. Before this started tonight, I was introduced to a gentleman, and he goes, "You're the lady with the front porch." And yes, I am the lady with the front porch, and I've had lots and lots and lots of front porch discussions with citizens of the community. I always try to gather information about how they feel about topics and where we should go with things. I've had conversations with you, Mike, about where we should go with things. So I try to be accountable to the citizens of Saugatuck, and I try to take their views into account when I'm making decisions at the table. But I'm the one that has to make the decisions. But I like to get lots of input before I do.
Mark?
Thank you this time. Okay. The council is somewhat limited when it comes to developments. However, we can change zoning. There's things we can do, but oftentimes it's tough in our town regarding zoning to do anything that's proactive, because I mean the little town's been here for so long. But accountability is critical. I hope that I'm held accountable by the people that I represent. I get a lot of phone calls. People sometimes are curious. Some people are quite frank. Some people are really upset. I can see the accountability issue relative to the Muse building, where you have you allow something like that, and then we're going all crazy over a awning, for instance. Those are both processes. Oh, that's the key. Those are both processes. And you have to respect and follow the processes that you have in effect. That's what legislators have to do. That's what council people have to enforce. Our laws, our ordinances. Sometimes they're not the best. Sometimes they have to be changed. Where we can be accountable is who we put on those boards. And that can make a difference. And hopefully that's something that we can be better at in the future.
Barry?
Absolutely, we're all accountable, and I'm not a fan of term limits. We've lost some great legislatures due to term limits, and because I think we all have 2-year term limits on the council. If we're not doing a good job, we're up for re-election in 2 years, and so that's why we have to be accountable if we want to continue to serve the community. So accountability is huge, and I wrote a note, and Mark kind of stole my thunder, but you know, appointments to the boards. That's where we can try to do our very best to get the people on the boards that are going to do the good job. Historic Commission, like Ken mentioned, you know, there's not a lot we can do as far as things that get approved through historic. It ends up under the purveyance of the state. And when I was the mayor, we had just had so many run-ins and everything that I looked into what's it take to eliminate a historic district. And it was just so unwieldy. I mean, we went as far as appointing a committee of citizens, doing an inventory of every, you know, house in that district, and it just was so burdensome to change that. It just didn't happen. So, you know, so appointing good people to those commissions is really important, and we should always be accountable for what we do.
Joe?
Well, you've heard me mention accountability and transparency, and the awning. That's the best example I can think of. To me, it would be just common sense that this is something that could have been settled over a cup of coffee at uncommon grounds. But instead, you had personalities and egos get involved. We've now into this up to the tune of $20,000 in legal fees. Now that's nickels and dimes in Detroit and Chicago, but that buys us a lot in Saugatuck. You could have repainted the public bathrooms for 20 grand. You could do a lot of things for 20 grand. And it's 20 grand and counting, because it's my understanding nothing has been settled. This is the height of stupidity. If I am elected, that will be the first thing I would try to do, is to get everybody together, I don't care if they're kicking and screaming, to kind of put an end to this.
Another question from the audience. If not, we go to some prepared questions. Would you please explain your position on the extra voted road millage renewal proposal that's on the November ballot? We begin with Jane.
Yes. The extra road millage that is on the ballot is a renewal of our road millage. It's not a new millage, it won't raise taxes, it's just a renewal. The city of Saugatuck makes about $269,000 a year with their road millage. Over the course of the next 15 years, we will collect $4 million. We have about $6 million worth of infrastructure that needs to be attended to. 200,000 is parks, and the other 400,000 is road, or 4 million is road millage. So we try to attend to our city streets and our infrastructure to keep them vibrant and working, because the minute your bathroom doesn't work, you're going to be really upset. And the minute you can't get down the street, you're going to be even more upset. So we try to keep our streets in order, and we try to keep our infrastructure up to date.
Thank you. Mark.
I'm a supporter of the renewal of the road millage. Again, it is a renewal. It will allow the council, through its budgeting process, to apply up to a ceiling of 2 mills for road infrastructure improvements, which also can include water lines, sewer lines, curb, gutter, storm sewer, and sidewalks. If you were in our community back in the 70s and into the 80s, there wasn't, you remember that our roads were not in very, very good shape. Probably a large portion of our roads were still gravel with no water lines. That doesn't exist anymore. I believe we have put in upwards over $6 million into our roads since 2001, and we have upwards of $7 million of work to do. And then you turn around and you start all over again. We've got some large projects, including Butler Street primarily, that are going to come up and really bite us hard if we don't prepare for it. And I think our community has always been supportive. Twice they've gone and we've asked for millage approvals on voting issues, and both times our community has voted in favor of road millages. And so I hope we do it again. Thank you.
Barry.
I also support the road millage. I've voted for it each time. And one thing Saugatuck is good at is taking care of our infrastructure. You don't have to look very far afield to see some people that are having some very big challenges with their infrastructure. We've got about $5 million of just road projects on our priority street projects, and that can only be funded through a voted millage. We don't have enough in the city coffers to pay for that kind of stuff. So the average household will probably pay $150 a year for this millage, which is not a lot of money. You know, if you think about it monthly, probably spend more at Wally's than that on the weekend. So over a year. And, you know, we need to get that done. We got to get these big projects done, and it'll raise about $278,000 a year for those projects.
Joe.
I also support the millage. When I first bought my property, Allegan Street was crushed gravel. And I think maintaining the property, it improves everything. It improves the quality of the people who live in the town, and I think it helps the business district in just presenting the type of image that we should present if you want the town to grow. So yes, I would be in favor of that.
And lastly, Ken.
We'll make it unanimous. I also support the millage, and mostly for the last reason that Joe mentioned. I think really great streets and a good infrastructure is part of the brand of Saugatuck. It's what makes us look good and makes people want to come back to see us again. I think it's just critical, and if we don't have that millage, the roads that we've built now, the nice infrastructure that we have, is going to start deteriorating very quickly.
Thank you. Next question, unless there's someone from the audience. Okay. Explain your position and discuss what you think is the best possible solution regarding the sedimentation issues related to the Kalamazoo Harbor. We begin with Mark.
A monumental task that we can't afford. The problem is handed down to us and exacerbated by the fact that it's a polluted river, and it all ends up on our doorstep. Doesn't mean we can't do anything. I've been involved with this issue, and I was the original council representative on the Harbor Commission, and now is turned into the Harbor Authority. We've done some good work under limited budget. It's just expensive. But we do have some good data on the books, bathymetric surveys, which is a kind of a survey, the entire river bottom, the Kalamazoo Lake river bottom. We're working now on sedimentation issues. We can't do it alone, folks. Douglas and Saugatuck can't do it alone. Saugatuck Township can't. That's not going to make a hill of difference. We're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. There are some short-term things we can do when the water does go down, some maintenance dredging. That's getting harder to do. The government, the state and the federal government does not play ball with us on these issues. Extremely, extremely difficult to get anything by these bureaucrats. And so we keep chipping away at it. Hope the water rises, but not too far. And we hope it can go down a little bit when it rises up, but not too far. This has been an issue that I've seen three times in my life, and the lowest water was actually in the early 60s. The highest water was in the late 80s. So we live with it, and we maintain it, and we do the best we can until Uncle Sam comes to our rescue, I guess.
Barry.
I mean, we had our best guy possible put forward in Mark Becken when we started doing this, and Ken's doing a great job carrying that on, but Mark hit the nail on the head. We just don't have the money in this tri-community to do that, And we're kind of three solutions, and there's really only one that makes any sense. A sediment trap is a constant maintenance. A channelization, the state ain't going to let us do it. It's got to start upstream, and it's got to be a whole river solution. That's where the sediment comes from. And there are communities that have worked and had upstream remediation to keep sediment out. And we have had the verbal commitment of our county commissioner, Dean Kappenga. We've got some very experienced and knowledgeable people on our council, but it's a whole river solution. It's just not a Band-Aid down at our end.
Joe?
You know, I understand what a difficult problem it is and an expensive problem. But if you don't start now, it never gets done. I read an article in one of the papers maybe 3 months ago talking about the necessity of addressing this problem and going forth with it. And I said, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I looked at the date that this was something that was written 9 years ago. And basically it keeps on getting pushed on and pushed down. And everything that Mark and Barry said is very true. But I think we have to look at ways to put heat on the people who are, and have them loosen the purse strings of the state or the government. But if we don't act now, in 2 or 3 years, it's just going to be that much work, worse, and cost that much more.
Ken?
Well, the plans that the two communities, Saugatuck and Douglas, and the Harbor Authority have now formulated call for a double-pronged approach to this. One is to work, as has been pointed out, with the sources of sedimentation upriver, to work with the political bodies to try to find solutions to, in a cooperative way, to reduce that. One solution that I was told was working quite well until the recession was that when you can incentivize farmers to practice farming in such a way that they don't contribute sediment to the river, they'll do it. They'll do it happily because they're incentivized financially to do it. Well, when that incentive dries up, so does their cooperation. So we need to get back to a political solution, probably at the state level, and work on that. So it's a county level cooperative effort and a state level of public policy. The final point that I would make is the plan also calls for identifying an infrastructure that will permit us to do maintenance dredging when and if the water ever gets as low as it got in 2013. That means we need to find a spoils containment area that's contiguous to the lake so that we don't have this expensive proposition of hauling the spoils material long distances. So that's the other prong of our approach.
And lastly, Jane?
Everything that Ken said is true. We need to explore where the sediment is coming from. We need to push for better farming practices through the county government. We need to look for a spoils location close by so that we can, when we do dredge, we don't have to haul dredged material, which is just so expensive, it's just ridiculous. We are working on this. We have selected a person to be our spokesperson in Lansing, and if we don't fix the sedimentation that's coming into the river, there's not much point in fixing the harbor, because it's like fixing the bathroom ceiling before you fix the leak in the roof. There's a process. So, and it's a very, very, very expensive process that none of us can afford.
The question then, from, again, the prepared questions. The city of Saugatuck and Douglas currently budget approximately over $1 million combined for police services for the two cities. What do you feel are options, if any, to reduce this cost? And we begin with Barry.
I served on the police committee, boy, I bet you for about 8 years or so, so I'm very familiar working with Douglas. And, you know, we had our own police department, they had their own police department. In the end, we've contracted with Douglas to be our police department, and that's worked, but I think there are more factors involved now, and the township's going to hang me an effigy, but we make 20 calls at least a month out into the township in certain parts of the township. I really think that a police authority, much like the fire authority district, is a way to go to bring all the players in, share the costs, and I think that'll drive costs down a little bit. Obviously, it'll increase the taxes in the township, but I think it needs to be an authority much like the fire district.
Joe?
That's something I agree with too. There has to be a melding of the various districts into one. And the more you do that, I believe you will see the costs go down. Everybody's running their own little fiefdom, and that never works with taxes. So yes, I agree with Jerry. I suppose you won't be the most popular person, neither will I, with anybody in the township, but I believe that's something that should be addressed.
Ken?
Well, I'm agreeing with that too. We have actually put forth the idea of a study commission to approach the authority issue with the township, Douglas and Saugatuck together. I'm not sure if that's going to fly. We're in the midst of negotiations with the township to see whether that can happen from their perspective. But I think if we don't explore that avenue, then we're leaving behind probably our greatest opportunity to have the most cost-effective policing in our region here.
Jane?
Being in the middle of that whole thing on the fire board and the police commission and the 911 board, it's obvious that the county cannot be counted upon to come into the community at any level whatsoever. The last 6 fire calls that were in the township got the response from the sheriff, "I'm sorry, we don't have a car in the area," when they asked for policing of a fire scene. We have to do something. If we're going to pay $1.4 million for a police force, we at least have to get together with everybody and talk about what we're doing and what we can afford and what we can give to the community. We thought we had the township's buy-in to come to the table and at least discuss this with us. It's getting a little dicey right now. Hopefully they will come to the table and discuss this with us. I believe people in the township don't realize that there is not any police protection in the township from the county sheriff's department, and it's only going to get worse according to the county administrator.
And lastly, Mark?
The only way you save money is cut services. The original police agreement that was entered into has my signature on it. At that time, we had about 4 police officers, including a working chief. You know, now we have 8 full-time officers, a lot of reserves, and a full-time chief. We'll be replacing the chief here as Ken Giles is going to be retiring. I do believe that before we cut services, we make every attempt we can to bring the township into the fold. I don't think we have to hire 1 additional stinking police officer, and we can service the township just fine. Saugatuck will continue to accept our responsibility to have increased police costs in the summer months because of the difference of our needs, but we're over-policed right now. And if there's no county guy available during the day, I don't know where they are, because I see them all over the place when I'm, it seems like every time someone's not, if there's not a Saugatuck guy there with his, in the speed trap, there's a county man around there doing the same thing. So I love them all. I'm a big supporter of the police, but I do think for a community our size, we're over-policed. If we can't bring the township to the table, we're going to have to look at staffing, the number of hours Saugatuck really needs, negotiate that with Douglas. It's Douglas's police force. We're a customer of Douglas. Their union, that presents a whole different, you can't cover this in two minutes, but those are the issues if you want to control costs. I guess I hit on what I think could be done.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the audience? If not, then that concludes the questions for the evening, and so we turn to you for your closing statement. And we begin, Joe, with you.
Well, I basically summed up those three principles that I have. I'm sorry. I summed up those three principles that I have: of transparency, accountability, and common sense. They go a long way as far as I'm concerned. Basically, I believe that putting the power of the community and voting into the hands of the people, present them with the proper information, have them make their decisions. We should represent the people. Personally, if you ask me a question, I will get you an answer. Now, if it's not an answer you like, then hopefully it's a call to action, and you want to organize your people to get your point of view across. And my other point is, drive around town. There's nobody building cottages anymore. You've got year-round homes, seven-figure homes. And not all of them have homestead exemptions. The same thing is true of the Presbyterian camp. We're looking at a lot of potential tax dollars coming into the community. I believe that everyone in the community should know where the money's coming from and how it's going to be spent, and make sure that their feelings are brought forward.
Thank you. Ken?
I guess I would close with talking about the main priorities I have for serving on the council. And the first one really arises out of my experience spending 40 years in doing marketing and strategic planning for healthcare organizations, and that is branding. I think it's critical that we maintain and enhance Saugatuck's brand, the ambiance we have, and the allure as a resort community and a shopping destination. We need to protect and maintain what makes Saugatuck great. Secondly, preserving services and our small town atmosphere. We have excellent fire and policing. We have questions about the scope of policing, but these are basically good services. Always could be improved, of course, but at least we're building from a good base. Our good roadways and public spaces are important to attracting visitors as well as for our own enjoyment. Thirdly is to maintain Lake Kalamazoo as an attractive and navigable harbor. Rising water levels gave us a temporary reprieve from the islands, but those islands are still out there, folks. The part in the middle of that lake is only 2 feet deep that 2 years ago rose up as an island, and when our water drops again, that's going to be a critical problem. The fourth one is enhancing the business environment to help make our business owners successful. Very important, as stated earlier. And finally, creating an environment of cooperation and civility, not confrontation and conflict, consensus building. This has been a great city council. There is very little negativity that we hear. We've worked together, in my experience, for the last 2 years very well, and I want to maintain that kind of atmosphere. Thank you.
Jane?
Well, in conclusion, I feel I have a great deal of experience to offer the community. As a longtime successful business operator, I feel I understand the tourist-based economy, the importance of a good downtown, and the importance of keeping downtown like it is. My connection with the county government on the 911 board gives this community a voice at the county level. I have a large knowledge base on public safety, and I feel I have a great deal to offer the community in coordinating public safety departments for a better delivery of services with some possible cost savings and recommendations. I have learned over the last 10 years to look at projects in their entirety, looking at long-term effects and financial implications to the city. I would ask for your vote on Election Day.
Thank you. Mark?
First of all, I want to acknowledge my wife this evening, because Barry kind of put me on the spot when he mentioned his wife Kathy. So my lovely wife Patty is here, and she's put up with me going to roughly 2,000 meetings over our 30-plus years of marriage. So anyways. I don't consider my longevity and my request to be reelected as a birthright. I think I earn it, and I think that I'll earn the vote and I'll earn the right to represent the community. I have strong leadership skills, and they were developed at both, partly from at the 911 dispatch and at Cal Lake, where the two managers of both those entities, I got a call early in the morning, they were both died unexpectedly. I don't know a thing about the legal operations of a central dispatch authority, but I had to exercise leadership skills, pull board members together, pull the county sheriff together, and come up with a plan to replace come to an interim director. Same thing happened at Cal Lake, which had a whole different set of issues, because I then got into what it takes as far as the requirements that the DEQ and the DNR places on its wastewater treatment plan in a water system. So I think I was tested at that, and I think I learned a great deal of that, and those are the types of skills I want to continue to bring to our community. And I hope I earn your vote. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And lastly, Barry, you get the last word.
All right. Again, I appreciate all the time I've spent and with the people that I've spent on the council, and I really take my hat off also to Joe for taking the time to put his name in the hat, and he had some good points tonight. Some of the priorities that I'm going to be working on if reelected, I am very sensitive to the short-term rental situation in town. I want to find out what's legal, what we can do, but we do got to get a handle on that because it's just the way that things are going in the last 10 years. I'm going to work tirelessly to get the road millage done. The police, evolution of the police department is very, very important to me. I've stated my how I'm in favor for a authority, and would like to work with that. And I have been a businessman in this community, so I'm very sensitive to the people in the business here. Kathy and I started a business. It's probably one of the top 3 employers in the community now. Very successful business, which we're retired from, but you know, we have done it. We've done our 90 hours a week in a business, and we know how hard it is and how hard our business community works. So definitely want to support them.
Thank you. Well, thank you, candidates, for coming this evening, and thank you, audience, for participating. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong. If you're interested in learning more about how to make a similar impact, we invite you to check out our website. Before we leave, I just want to mention that there are 3 options for voting. You can vote a straight ticket, or you can vote a split ticket. And a split ticket is voting straight, but then crossing over and marking a candidate in the other denomination. Or there's a mixed ticket, where you go across the aisle as you look at each candidate. This is an important point to remember, that because your vote does count. And so we invite you to remember to vote on November 8th. The polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. And as you have heard from your candidates, you know that there are 4 positions and 5 candidates. So I'm sure each would welcome your vote. Thank you very much for coming. We've appreciated your participation. You're welcome.